Okay, so just want to talk a little bit about masking and like separate model components like with ships like this. So this to me is actually like a separate model altogether. Like it helps with the builder psychologically as well when you have a really big project. Like they can be defeating, right? Like they can be really hard, like in the long run. Like especially if you're working on a project for 6 months. This particular ship has a lot of components and endless details, and they can burn on you. Now, painting is part of that process. So the painting started to overlap about 70% of the build. So when I just decided to change up, I had done a lot of building. I thought, I want to do some painting. I was in the mood. So I did the roof, and I was so happy with the way this roof turned out. Right? But I haven't painted the sides because I still had work to do on here. So this was paint. So I painted this like a few weeks back, let's say, and then I said, oh, I got to add the door, these vents, and then I fixed these light bezels here because they were just tubes. So obviously I want to keep this, so I'm going to mask this off with Tamiya tape now, just the outside, and I'll just use paper or cheap tape, for the larger spaces. Now you can do it this way, or you can do it the other way. You can finish this and then pre-paint this and then just put a nice trim line tape along the top here and then do all your washes or paint, depending on your method. But because I love to use wet on wet a lot, you're always going to get a little bit of seepage. Now, if you think of that ahead of time with a ship, that might be okay, because when you peel the tape off, it leaves an anomaly along the top edge here that could simulate decay and erosion and salt spray, etc. And that would work in your favor, so you wouldn't have to sweat that too much, right? So, you might wonder, why wasn't that difficult to tape all this around the railings? No, it isn't actually. Like once you get into it, like that's just one piece that I overlapped a tiny bit, and then I basically use actually I should just show you the three tools. Like these are the three main tools that I use. I use a pair of tweezers, a number 11 blade, and a bamboo stick, and my choice of tapes. And I just laid in the strip here, and I can just rub in and press it. Like, to me, a tape is awesome that way. It almost sort of bends around things. I mean, I've been using this tape like for decades, right? It's just awesome tape, right? So, okay, so that'll get masked off, and then I'll basically primer this probably and then spray it pure white, and then if I want to put washes on it to kind of highlight some of these details, then I will. But that in itself is a separate component, as I mentioned earlier. And these railings, like when I spray this white, the railings will get the white spray as well. And then where there's black parts, I think these ladders are black. I might have to, well, we'll see. I'll probably remask just behind here and just touch them with an airbrush, because it puts such a beautiful finish on detailed, ladder rungs and things like that. And then this searchlight, like I really like this area here. So I'm going to mask all this off, but I like the way this searchlight turned out too. Like this is aluminum. So I'm just going to probably scrape a little bit of that off, just rub it off a bit because I like that. And then I want to cover this up too. Okay. So a little bit of masking, and it's part of the fun, part of the art. And when you demask, you see it, it just, makes the model that much more clean and, acceptable when you use mask and spray, right? Okay. Okay, I just want to show you how I finish this off the sides here now. So this is primered white. I used the Tamiya fine primer on this. Now, I haven't put the finished white on yet, but what I want to do is I want to put a little bit of what you would call like a pin wash on here. And I'll start with the little porthole window there and around this door, for example. And I'll show you the other side in a second prior to paint, or just a little bit of prep before it gets the final paint finish. Well, not the final, but before clear coating. So you can see there, I just always put a little bit of water first. This is the Vallejo air, and I like to just use paint. So I can just take that. I know the water's up against the fine cut edge, so it's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to sit in that hole. Okay. Now I'm going to take a little bit of burnt umber. It's one of my favorite colors. And I'm just going to touch it because it's wet, and just let it capillary. So this will get oversprayed, the final white, so there'll just be a hint of it. And you can even take a little bit of, if you don't want to put IPA on your paint, you can just take a wet sandpaper, a little bit of wet and dry, and just rub it down. And when this gets painted over with the final semi-gloss white, then it'll knock that down. And I'll just show you, well, here's one of the inspection hatches. I'll show you what you can do here. There's quite a bit of water there, so you can wick some away. I'll just show you what happens when you just wick it in. This is 187 scale, right? It's, once again, 1/35th scale. Like when you watch 1/35th scale military modeler techniques, they don't translate to 187 scale as easy as you might think. It's a different scale. It's like, instead of being 35 feet away, you're 87 feet away. 187, 135, 135, 35 feet away, 187, 87 feet away. That's the philosophy of viewing color and light and shadow as it applies to a scale model. So I'll just show you just the other side before I clean this up a little bit, and then go do the final white overspray. So you can see how I use some dark blue-gray for around the hatches and a little bit of burnt umber. This will almost virtually disappear, and it'll knock down that contrast, so that you get, you know, this kind of a look, even though this is probably a telephoto lens and it's hundreds of feet away, probably 500, 600 feet away. Okay. Okay, so I just wanted to show you this before I do the final gloss white rattle can semi-gloss overspray on this. Now I basically take a little bit of 600 sandpaper. This is one of the techniques I like to use. So this is primered white, so sanding with 600 is just fine. Primer loves to be sanded, but you can see it's all like it's primered white, and then all the flood marks and tide marks are easily removed, and I leave some of it behind. I mean, even a ship after refit almost begins to rust within a couple of weeks when it's put out to sea. So pretty happy with that. So the final coat will tone that down just to the way I want it. And then it's details on the top of this roof here, etc. Okay.